Hello and welcome back to the Wizards Arena, my fellow Planeswalkers. Today we are doing a new series here. This series is going to focus on Commander. We're going to do 10 cards. We're going to do 5 cheap versions of the cards and 5 expensive versions. We're also going to try to highlight cards that the cheap versions aren't played that much. They just don't see play. We're starting with white. I'm going to try to get 1 to 2 of these out a week. See how we can do on that schedule. Try to shoot for Wednesdays. So, we are going to try to stay under the $2 budget for the budget cards, if not cheaper than that. And the first up is Gifts of the Estate. Now, before we get into talking about the card, some info here. This is the date for the EDH rec prices that are down below here. Card Kingdom's price, TCG prices, how many decks it's running, and the percentage of all white decks or all decks that could possibly run this card. So any deck that has white in it only runs this 1% of the time. It gets kind of skewed when you start talking about 5-color decks and things like that might not want to run this. But let's break this card down. So for 2 mana, if an opponent controls more lands than you, search your library for up to 3 planes. Any 3 planes. You can go get Tundra, Savannah, Scrubland. You can go get 3 basic planes. I run this in every mono white deck I have, and I also run this in my white red deck. Boros needs all the loving it can get. So, it's 2 mana. It's a 1-shot. I like it a lot. It's not been printed that much. That's why if you look at the prices here, it's $179 on Card Kingdom and $162 on TCG. It's used in about 1% of the decks. I like it. 2 mana, get 3 lands. This is not a ramp spell. This is, let's get you back in the game, get you caught up. So this is the cheap version of the first card we're talking about. The next card we have up is everybody knows about this card. Land Tax. It's running about 10% of all white decks. As you can see here, the price is vastly different. We're talking about $30 or $25 card. It's in about 9%, 10% decks. This only lets you get basic lands. You can get any kind of basic lands. It's a 1 white multiple use enchantment if you're behind. Again, this is not ramp, this is catch up. It's the kind of thing white struggles with, is having good ramp options. They just give you catch up options, which doesn't help. But if you want to swing for more money and get something better than Gifts of the Estate, that's probably what you're looking at. Land Tax. I like Gift of the Estate because it's cheaper on the budget. Because when you have I have it in 4 decks or 3 decks. I have 45 Commander decks. I will link below the link to tappedout.net where all my decks are listed out, and every single card is posted from Rune of the Hidden Realms, Achroma Mono White, Ordric, Uriel the Miststalker. I got 45 decks there. You can go check them all out, see what you think. So let's get into our next card. Our next card is Verge Rangers. They are $1.50. Only about 3% of your decks in the run white play this card. They are 2 and a white for 3/3 strike from the Commander 20 set. You may look at the top card of your library at any time. Okay, sweet. And as long as you control as long as an opponent controls more lands than you, you may play lands from the top of your library. So only works on your turn, and it just makes sure that you have a chance of not missing land drops. Again, not ramp. Just trying to keep you even with the table. So if you're playing like white-red again, mono white, you can just slap a land down off the top of your deck. If you're using something like Crystal Ball or another scry mechanic to manipulate the top of your deck with like white-blue, then this is more useful. But it is only $1.50, not the greatest, but it gets you by. Because white again has trouble with mana. Our next card is the upgrade version. It just came out. He is the Keeper of the Accord. He is from Commander Legends. He's 3 and a white for a 3/4. At the beginning of each opponent's end step, if they control more creatures than you, make a 1/1 dude. At the beginning of each opponent's end step, if that player has more lands than you, search your library for basic plains card and put it into play. Actual mana ramp. The only reason I compared this dude to the previous guy is because they're both creatures. They cost relatively the same amount of mana. This guy's $5. He's in about 10% of white decks. They realized, people did, that it's good. So we will go on to our next card, which is Angel of the Dire Hour. Now, I like her for a couple reasons. Let me get her info up for you. She's under $1, 65 cents on TCBG. Only 1% of her decks runner. I would guess that 1% is probably Tribal Angels, and that's about it. I like her because she's got Flash, and when she comes in, she exiles, if you cast her from your hand, all the attacking creatures. So if there's an arch enemy at the table and you really have to take out Mr. 360 and you just can't do it on your own, you can say to your buddy, like, okay, like, don't attack me, go get him. Or they're trying to take out the guy and you're like, well, only me and my friend can take him out, so I'm going to flash this in. The attack doesn't have to come at you. It just has to be going on. So you can politicalize with this card too. And it's on a 5/4 body. So a 5/4 flyer with Flash for 7. Little steep, but exiling the board, really cool. It also gets rid of, with the exile effect, indestructible creatures. So that's sweet too. Now let's talk about the non-budget version of this card, which would be Settle the Wreckage. Closest thing I could think of to be comparable. It's about $3.50. About 3% of decks run it. It's instant. It's about half as much mana. The big drawback to this is the player who gets nuked by this gets to go get basic lands. But if they're playing like Dragon, 5-color dragon, tribal, smash your face, and they don't have basic lands, well, then they're just out of luck. I know if this gets used against my warrior deck, there's only like 4 or 5 basic lands in there just in case for things like this. But I would be I would be screwed, and just wouldn't happen. This is about $3.50, and I like it, And also, I'm trying to do in my play group, especially, is only use cards like 2 or 3 times in all your decks. I've got 45 decks. I think this is in 1 deck, and that's it. There's just so many good removal spells now that I'm trying to spread the love around. I'm having a really tough time though with Kodama. The East Tree is just so good. I'm slapping him in every green deck. There are a few cards we do run in every deck, like Cultivate and stuff like that. But our next card up is Banishing Light. Now, Banishing Light, I like it for a couple things. Which is, 1, it's only 3 mana. 2, it comes in and gets rid of anything that's not a land. So you can get rid of a planeswalker, a really aggressive creature, an indestructible permanent, like a god. There's a bunch of different things you can get rid of. That's what they reprinted in Theros. I run this in 3 decks, or 2 decks. It's in Uriel the Miststalker, and it's in my white, blue, black enchantment fairy deck. I like it a lot. Obviously, there's better versions, which we'll get to right now. And our next card is the upgrade to Banishing Light, which is Grasp of Fate. Now, Grasp of Fate would set you back about $6.50. About 4% of the decks run it. I run it in Uriel the Miststalker along with Banishing Light. The advantage to this one is it's 2 and a white. 2 white and 1, I mean. And you can hit each opponent instead of just one. So you get to like go, oh, I get rid of the biggest threat. I'll get rid of another big threat. And you're not really a problem here. I'll take just something to make sure the card goes off. So you wouldn't want to get rid of it. So you can do political stuff with that also, which makes this card also really good. Only about 4% of decks run this too. This one I feel should be running more stuff, but it's because it's only been printed twice. Once in Commander, the first time it came out, Commander 15, and the Mystery Boosters, which did not see enough printing because of COVID. And then our final pair of cards are Palestine Giant is our first one. I like her a lot. She's 35 cents. For 4 and 2 white, you get a 2/7 big honking giant soldier. Play around my soldier deck. And all damage that would be dealt to you or another permanent I control is instead dealt to her. And if you put stuff like Indestructible Plate on her, she just soaks all the damage and goes, yeah, more. Which is really cool in a way. It's just a big tough roadblock for them to get through. So it buys you at least a turn. And if you have out other things like I have in my soldier deck that buff her up, she gets to be really tough to deal with. She's only in about 500 decks, according to EDH Rec. It's less than 0% of all decks that could run her. But, you know, it's a very niche card. 35 cents, like I said. So, our next card is the upgrade for her. The Selfless Squire. Now, this is a $5 card. There's only ever in Commander 16. Correct me if I'm wrong. 3 and a white flash for 1/1. When it enters the battle, it will prevent all damage that would be dealt to you this turn. So you just say, I'm taking all the damage, flashing the Squire, and then all that damage is prevented and put that many +1/+1 scoundrels on this thing. So you're like, oh, I'll just take 10, flash. I got an 11/11 blocker now. That's a human soldier. Like the giant soldier. Both tribal soldiers. Nice. Just hope they don't have like mana drain or something like that. You can counterspell, make you really sad. You just take the damage and die. So this is how the format's going to kind of be. We're going to have a good card that's nice and budgety. And then we'll have one that's more expensive. This one is, instead of being used in 0% of all decks, it's 1%. So I don't think people realize how many that this is a thing. And now what we're going to do is we're going to have 2 honorable mentions. First up is the Inversion. The Inversions are currently sitting at 40 cents. Now, I know, it's 8 mana to destroy all non-land permanents. This sounds crazy expensive up here. Like, people don't want to spend that much mana. But, only 4% of decks run this. And this is a Wrath that's stapled on the backside is a land that comes into play tapped. I like it. I really like this card. I just think it's being underutilized and the price is criminally low. When I'm making decks, I count this card here as half a land. It's like, okay, if I have this in another card that's like this, then I count it as one land. I don't rely on it to be in a land. I just, if I get it, I get it. If I don't, I don't. Like, I don't want to, like, have the issue of you draw a bunch of tap stuff or you just count these as lands and you're going from like 37 all the way down to like 33, and then you're like, well, where's all my stuff? And our last bonus card, because I couldn't think of equal versions of this, is this card, Riot Control, which is in life gain decks. One life gain deck I have. It's 2 and a white, instant. You gain 1 life for each creature your opponents control. Prevent all damage. Well, if somebody drops Crater Hoof, this is a good way to just, like, really screw with them. You know, they're like, I just full out attack. And you're like, well, okay, I guess I'll block, nothing, and take the damage, and your opponents each take the damage, and it's like, oh, I'll prevent all damage dealt to me. My dudes are alive, I gain a bunch of life, and these 2 other opponents of mine just died, and you're wide open. Come back with the comeback swing. So that's why I like this card, and there's really not much in the way of things being like this. It's only a quarter, because it's a common, and it's hardly used at all, just 1% of decks. So I like it a lot. Pretty cool little card. So that is what Tech Your Deck is going to be like. We're going to cover cards like this that you might not know about, or you might have heard of land tax and you didn't know that Gifts of the Estate is a cheap version. So that's why, or you might have Gifts of the Estate, for example, in a deck, and you're like, oh, I want to upgrade or add another one. Oh, I've saved up some money, or the government's sending me a check for COVID relief. Go buy land tax, you know. So by showing you 5 budget options, you got those, and by showing you the upgrade versions, if you decide later on to go back and upgrade to like Keeper of the Accord, you got those options. So my name's been Draymore with the Wizards Arena. Please like, share, subscribe, and comment below if you'd like to continue to see more card series like this. And I'll see you guys in the next one. Have a great day.